Well, the Bharatiya Janata Party sweep of Uttar Pradesh in 2014 dominated the headlines in the immediate aftermath of that election. As crucial were the party's wins in the other Hindi heartland states of Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. Of the 65 Lok Sabha seats in these three states, the BJP won 62. 6 months ago, the BJP lost assembly elections in all three states to the Congress. Will Prime Minister Modi's popularity carry the BJP over the line in this election? To talk about that, we have Professor Rajan Mahan from the University of Rajasthan joining us from Jaipur. Abhilash Khandekar, former editor of Dainik Bhaskar, joins us from Bhopal. And on the phone line, Lalit Surjan, editor-in-chief of the Deshbandhu Media Group, who joins us on the phone line from Raipur. Thank you, gentlemen, for all of us for joining at this point of time. I'd like to lay out first a common theme across all three states. We heard a lot of the problem of farm issues, agrarian distress through 2018, and perhaps some of that reflected in the state elections that went into November and December. Let me start with you, Professor Mahan. Does that go beyond, did the blame for that go beyond the state government? Was it limited to that? How much of that perhaps voters were attached to the central government led by Mr. Modi?
Well, of course, the direct sort of fallout of the agrarian crisis within Rajasthan, for instance, was directly linked with the Vasundhara Raje government, the BJP government that ruled at the state level in the last 5 years. But to say that the Modi government has been blameless would actually be pretty inaccurate. And let me tell you exactly why. Because, for instance, this agrarian distress that everyone has been talking about, the farmers didn't get the relief that they were looking for, even despite the fact that the Prime Minister in the 2014 elections had categorically said that he would ensure that farm incomes would actually double up. Instead, what we found in states like Rajasthan, for instance, and that is where the blame for the center lies, is that even in crops where an increase in the MSP, the minimum support price, was announced by the government, the purchase of those crops was simply not happening to an adequate amount. And therefore, farmer distress and the anger of farmers is not limited only to the state government that was run by Vasundhara Raje in the last 5 years, but also with the Modi government at the center, there was a sense of disappointment because they promised a lot and yet not delivered exactly what would have given some concrete, adequate relief for the farmer. So one would have to admit that it's not just the anger against the Vasundhara Raje government that got reflected in December, but some of the blame for that anger would also rest on the central government led by Mr. Modi.
Right. In Madhya Pradesh, Mr. Khandekar, you had the trouble in Mandsaur 2 years ago. Subsequently, you had the Madhya Pradesh government led then by Shivraj Singh Chauhan come out with the Bhavantar scheme, which tried to bridge some of the problems Professor Mahan spoke about, the difference between the market selling price and the MSP. That then perhaps did not catch as much traction as the BJP had hoped for. Kamal Nath's government came in, scrapped that scheme. Madhya Pradesh has been a hotbed of a decade of fabulous farm growth and then trouble over the last 3 years. Now that Bhavantar has been set aside, you have a PM Asha scheme that the central government is implementing. In Madhya Pradesh, does that attachment to distress in rural areas get attached more to the central government?
I don't think so, because if you see the results of the last assembly elections in Madhya Pradesh, there was a very very narrow margin, wafer thin margin between Congress and the BJP in the last elections that were held in November 2018. The BJP polled 41.53 or something percentage of votes, whereas Congress got about 41% of votes. The difference of seats, of course, was there. But the Shivraj-led Bharatiya Janata Party bagged 109 seats and the Congress got about 112 or 13. So there was not much of a difference. So if we say that there were some problems in the Mandsaur area bordering Rajasthan in Madhya Pradesh, where 6 farmers were killed, actually the Congress was expected to reap rich dividends in that particular belt. But it was the BJP which recorded emphatic victories in many of the constituencies in Mandsaur and adjoining areas. So to say that Madhya Pradesh has been witnessing the farmer distress and therefore the farmers were against BJP is half truth. Of course, after Kamal Nath came to power, he has been talking about farm loan waivers, and the Modi government has been talking about the doubling of farmers' income. But that is actually they are aiming for 2022. And the Ashok Dalwai committee, which was formed sometime in 2017, has recently submitted the report, and the expectations from farmers or from the government is that by 2022 the farmers' income will be doubled. Whether it will actually happen, one doesn't really know. As far as Madhya Pradesh is concerned, in this Lok Sabha elections, farmers' issue is dominant. But the fact remains there are many other issues also, and one thing is certain, that the people in Madhya Pradesh are getting an impression that Kamal Nath, as Chief Minister, has not been able to get his act together, and there are a lot of power cut issues, and there are a number of other issues of transfers and postings and corruption, etc. And the farmers, specifically speaking, have not got exactly what was promised by the Congress in its manifesto.
Okay. In Chhattisgarh, Mr. Surjan, you had a 15-year government that went out in the state. Through that period, other adjunct arms of the BJP, through the RSS and its Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram, you had some bit of the tribal vote that moved to the BJP. That was the one that fell through the most for the party in all these three states. Where did that equation go wrong? What blocks of voters seem to have moved in that last state election, and how much of that can be extrapolated to the Lok Sabha election?
I think in the assembly elections.
Yes, sorry, go on.
And it was a board. All of the society, they were unhappy and angry with the 15-year rule of BJP, and that is why they overwhelmingly voted in the Congress with 68 seats out of 90, and BJP was reduced to just 15 seats. Right. So the farmers' distress was the paramount issue, and then this Congress Ghoshna Patra, the manifesto, as I earlier said, that it did the trick. Okay. Farmers believed Rahul Gandhi and the state Congress, Bhupesh Baghel and others, and so that was the biggest thing. That was the clincher, and so Congress won handsomely. And in the present scenario, what I find that people have reposed a faith in Congress. They still have a lot of faith, and the majority of people, the voters, think that Congress has fulfilled its promise of higher MSP and loan waiver and bonus on paddy and this concession in the electricity power bill. Right. So all things have been delivered. All promises, the main promises have been delivered. Right. Congress appears to be well poised.
Okay. The BJP has, now getting down to dynamics of this election, the BJP changed all its sitting MPs in the states. Voting is now done in the state. By doing that, were they able to distance themselves from any of the disenchantment that the party faced and its local leaders faced?
Actually, what has happened that in Chhattisgarh, since assembly elections were fought under the leadership of Dr. Rajan Singh, and after losing elections so badly, assembly elections so badly, still Dr. Raman Singh holds sway over BJP. The leader of opposition is his choice. The new chief of the state BJP is his choice. So other BJP leaders, they are rather feeling frustrated that their voice is not being heard, and that BJP top leadership, the national leadership, has given them a short shift. So so things are not as good, and this denying ticket to all 10 sitting MPs has also not worked in their favor.
Okay.
This is my
Has
sense.
that led to camps which have tried to cut other candidates' votes in terms of, have you got the sense that the machinery of the party has not moved in sync with whoever's been made to stand in each of those seats?
That is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
That the BJP machinery, because the leadership continues with Dr. Raman Singh and his team,
Okay.
and other leaders of BJP like Brajmohan Agrawal or many others, the tribal leaders. They all have been reduced to just being a MLA or just being the leader, just only for the name's sake.
Okay.
So that is not helping BJP here.
Mr. Khandekar, in Madhya Pradesh, how involved has former Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan been in the process of candidate selection, in the process of what message to take to voters? Because I will get down to specific candidate selection in particular areas, but does the current crop of leaders who are made to stand and the message that the BJP is taking to the voters in Madhya Pradesh, does that carry Shivraj Singh's imprint, or is this straight from Delhi?
Initially, it appeared that Shivraj is being sidelined, just like it appeared that Raman Singh having been, at the receiving end in Chhattisgarh, because the BJP did very badly in Chhattisgarh, and therefore all the 11 MPs were changed in Chhattisgarh. In Madhya Pradesh also, there have been a lot of new candidates, including at Indore, where Sumitra Mahajan was denied ticket, and also in Bhopal, where Sadhvi Pragya Singh Thakur has been fielded, and both are the choices of Delhi. But at the same time, the candidate from Indore, which is a very important constituency, because Sumitra Mahajan, who hails from Maharashtra, she represented the constituency for 30 long years, and she has been replaced by a small leader, but he's the
leader. He's the head of the Indore Development Authority right now, right? If I have that right, he's the chairman of the Indore Development Authority. So does he carry goodwill in the fact that the city has been announced as the cleanest in the country? If there's a message of that the city has been managed well, does he carry any of that goodwill into this election?
No. Let me correct you that the Swachhata Sarvekshan, in which Indore stood stood as the #1 city for the third consecutive year, the credit goes to the mayor, and because it was done by the municipal corporation. Right. So Shankar Lalwani was the chairman of Indore Development Authority. It had a different job to do. It had nothing to do with the cleanliness drive. Okay. And he is not a tall leader at all. He tried for his MLA ticket in the last November elections, and he was denied. This time, this is because he belongs to Sindhi community. There is a sizable number of Sindhis in Indore. Right. Therefore, the choice was this. So I was replying to your original question was about the Shivraj Singh's role. So Shivraj Singh has been able to support his follower, that is Shankar Lalwani in Indore. And in many other places also, Shivraj Singh's candidates have been favored. But initially, it appeared that Shivraj Singh was given a short shrift. But now it seems that because in Chhattisgarh, in Madhya Pradesh, in both places, these two leaders, Dr. Raman Singh and Shivraj Singh, had become very towering leaders for BJP, and there was actually no second line. And if they were to be sidelined, BJP would have been in problems. So BJP central leadership fell back on the same leaders, and instead of completely sidelining them, they are keeping them in good humor. And some of their candidates have been given the ticket this time around.
How has the candidature of Pragya Singh Thakur gone down with him? Is that something that's palatable to him in Bhopal? And how does that message get carried by somebody who's run the state for a while?
I don't think, because if you remember, Pragya Singh Thakur was arrested during Shivraj Singh's rule in Madhya Pradesh when he was the chief minister. She was arrested twice. And given the chance, Shivraj Singh would have fielded somebody else, but this was the BJP High Command's decision to field her against Digvijay Singh, who is a towering leader of Congress. And he is fighting the Lok Sabha election after a long time. For 15 years, he had been out of picture. So since he was accused of being coining the word Hindu terrorism or the saffron terrorism, Therefore, this Sadhvi had been fielded at the last moment. She was not keeping well, and if, as you know, the election commission has banned her from campaigning for 72 hours beginning this morning.
Professor Mahan, in Rajasthan, from Jan 2018 through to the election, you had the slogan in particular parts and one or two at BJP rallies as well, which went on the lines of Modi tujhse bair nahi, Vasundhara teri khair nahi. Does that come through in the one round of voting that's happened, in that voters are distinguishing very clearly between, you mentioned this briefly, that the blame for agrarian distress is not the state governments alone, but have you got the sense that voters are continuing to distinguish between that unhappiness with the state government and what they make of the central government led by Mr. Modi?
Well, there's no question about the Prime Minister's popularity. So to that extent, the anger that we witnessed in Rajasthan against the Vasundhara Raje government is definitely far less this time around. But from there to jump to a conclusion that the BJP will do splendidly and is likely to repeat that 25-0 sweep that they had in Rajasthan in the 2014 elections, I think would be going, completely astray. What is likely to more than, what is more than likely to happen this time around is possibly a sort of half and half split. The Congress is definitely on the road to recovery. They are now ruling in the state. The tradition in Rajasthan has been that whichever party wins in the assembly election tends to do even better. A kind of a bandwagon effect takes place, and the party in power at the state government level then tends to do better in the Lok Sabha.
In Madhya Pradesh, we've also had the trouble of, the Congress has faced the trouble of factionalism, be that until this Kamal Nath government came around, you had a faction with Digvijay Singh leading a section. You had a part where you had Kamal Nath in the eastern parts of the state, Suresh Pachauri in parts, and in the north of the state you had the Scindia family, which had its own area of influence. Does that inhibit or limit the Congress's chances in Madhya Pradesh right now, Mr. Khandekar, in the sense that is it working as one unit the way the BJP has at times? The Congress has always been accused of working in leaders' interests in parts and very from only time to time coming together and working together towards a common goal.
In some way it is true, but Congress has already shown that having come back to power after 15 years, they have been able to bury their differences, and there are not many leaders. Suresh Pachauri has been losing elections and he is no longer a tall leader of Congress. There are only 3 leaders in Madhya Pradesh, that is PCC chief and the Chief Minister Kamal Nath, who is responsible for some of the victories in Mahakoshal area, that is Jabalpur, Mandla, Chhindwara, Baitul, etc. And then Jyotiraditya Scindia, who was the campaigning committee chief, and he was in charge of the Gwalior and Chambal area, from where a large number of MLAs have won in the last assembly election. And then you have Digvijay Singh. And Digvijay Singh was the chief minister for 10 long years, was the first chief minister to have completed 10 years in Madhya Pradesh. Now these 3 factions had joined hands, and therefore they could come back to power after a long time. And there was this feeling among the people of Madhya Pradesh that Digvijay Singh's rule between 2003 and between 1993 and 2003 was not a great administration, and therefore the BJP won the elections under Uma Bharti's leadership in 2003, and after that continued for 15 years. But during that 15 years also, BJP was no different party, so to say, but it was not a party with a difference which they used to claim all over the country. And there were corruption charges, there were a number of irregularities, there were a number of things. But yes, during as you had asked earlier, the BJP did well under Shivraj Singh as far as the agriculture performance was concerned, and they had actually clocked a 2-digit growth in Madhya Pradesh, which was among the highest in the country. Right. But coming back to the faction fighting in Congress, I don't think there is much of faction fighting. There were some delays in the selection of candidates, but finally they got together, and Kamal Nath, being a very senior leader, he saw to it that the faction fighting ends and they get good candidates this time round. And last time some of their important leaders, including Pachauri, who had lost from Bhopal as Lok Sabha election, and then he lost assembly elections 2 consecutive times. Then Ajay Singh, who is the son of Arjun Singh, he lost from Vindh region. He is now fighting. He lost his Churad seat in assembly. Now he is fighting the Siddhi Lok Sabha seat this time now. And there are many others also who lost last time. But the Congress, I think, has been able to put its act together and is I think, fighting a good election this time round.
Rajan Mahan, as Rajasthan's a border state, how much of what you were talking about has a pre-Balakot, post-Balakot sense of the BJP being able to bring this election and bring out the narrative of the importance of a strong country, one country, a response to a neighboring state? As at the front line of an international border, have voters been swayed by that narrative over the last 2-3 months?
Well, there's no denial that the whole Balakot, Pulwama sort of narrative built around this strong nationalism is striking a chord. Rajasthan, as you know, is a border state, and therefore it's only natural that some of this would strike a chord. But to assume that this will, completely sweep the voters off their feet is unlikely to happen. Yes, Rajasthan sends the largest number of soldiers to the Indian Army. Yes, Rajasthan is a border state. But at the same time, there is a lived reality, which is of the last 5 years, which is that they were promised in 2013 when the BJP got into power in Rajasthan in the last, the elections, assembly elections in 2013, that voters in and then voters also at the center. And Rajasthan voted and voted heavily in favor of the BJP. But in the past 5 years, people didn't feel that the sense of transformation that should have happened in their normal lives even was remotely attempted. Instead, what we saw was, agrarian distress, very little attention to providing jobs to people. I mean, far too often, government jobs in Rajasthan have, time after time sort of run into legal hassles, and many almost get a sneaking suspicion that somewhere the government itself is colluding to ensure that they don't have to actually give the jobs. They just announce the jobs and nobody's getting the jobs. So I think the lived reality of economic hardship, of problems that came in with demonetization, of the fact that the youth here has simply not seen any great job opportunities being created for them. I think all of that will have to be balanced with this nationalism narrative that the BJP, of course, is playing and playing very, very strongly in Rajasthan, being a border state. So what one gathers is that, yes, it has a resonance, it does strike a chord, but when people, reflect more coolly, then they seem to be more bothered about the bread and butter issues related to their immediate lives. And that is where the real complexity, the Congress focusing on local issues, on issues of economic hardships that people, various sections of society have faced, and the BJP concentrating heavily and almost exclusively on this, the strong nationalism narrative that they've tried to build up post-Pulwama.
Mr. Surjan, in Chhattisgarh for many years, even at the time of the UPA government, you had Raman Singh working in tandem with the Home Ministry of the time to make sure that law and order, what could be done between the state and the center was being remedied. Has that been an issue? The strong CRPF presence in the state, have issues like that, which again might get attached to the central government and its role. Has that been an issue in this election round?
Look, the problem of Maoism is limited to South Bastar. And in other parts of the state, it has almost no impact. So, of course, when CRPF battalion, the soldiers, when they are attacked and they are killed, but it doesn't go beyond. It has a limited, I would say, limited traction, and then people forget about it. This is a sad reality. People talk about it for 2-3 days, right, and then they all forget about it. And in urban Chhattisgarh, in Raipur, Bilaspur, Durg, Bhilai, they hardly talk about it after once an incident has happened, and then they forget about it. So that is one thing. Regarding, let me tell you, since you were discussing Pulwama and Balakot, so let me tell you that with the young voters, this narrative of nationalism has got some traction, and young voters, wherever I have traveled in Chhattisgarh, and I have found that they think that in Narendra Modi have found a savior, and but it is not the case with the farmers and not with the women, particularly in rural areas. So on that, the opinion is divided.
How about, Mr. Khandekar, how about in Madhya Pradesh? And is it possible to make a distinction between a Hindutva message and the last 2 months of nationalism? How's that played in the last couple of months? Madhya Pradesh is also a state that has been amongst the earliest to elect BJP governments right from Sundarlal Patwa. Does that vote base remain intact, and has the last 2 months narrative added to that vote base a bit?
I think so, because Madhya Pradesh has been over a period of time converted into a BJP stronghold, and as you rightly said, Sundarlal Patwa or Kailash Joshi, they became the chief minister in the late 70s during the Janta government time, and after that the BJP has been coming back to power off and on, and in the last 15 years continuously in Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh during the time when Chhattisgarh was divided in 2000, that is November 2000. So Madhya Pradesh has always, in the last couple of years, seen BJP going from strength to strength.
Just one final roundup question to all of them. Starting with Rajan Mahan, you said, this very quick fire round, you said evenly split. So out of 25, I know most of us hate doing predictions, but out of 25, which way do you see it falling in numbers as a range that you'd give, both sides?
I think the edge to the BJP.
Okay.
Because this is Lok Sabha, the edge is to the BJP, and they were at 25.
Okay.
But the Congress likely to get into double figures. Somewhere around 10 to 12 is where the Congress could achieve in this election.
You're saying 15 to 10 or 13 to 12 to the BJP in Rajasthan, Mr. Khandekar in Madhya Pradesh?
I'm saying about 10 to 12 for the Congress in Rajasthan, the rest to the BJP.
Okay. Mr. Khandekar, which way, again, asking you to put a number or a range of numbers to Madhya Pradesh, 27 or 29 last time, how many to the BJP do you expect to see on the 23rd May?
I think, like in Rajasthan also, like in Madhya Pradesh also, like Rajasthan, BJP is likely to suffer losses, because in Madhya Pradesh they had almost bagged all the seats, barring 2, like I said. This time round, they are likely to lose 10 to 12 seats, which means the Congress is likely, there is no third party or there is no third force in Madhya Pradesh. So I can hazard saying this thing about 10 to 12 seats to Congress.
Okay.
Out of 29. All right.
Mr. Surjan, how about Chhattisgarh? Again, only 1 seat dropped by the BJP in 2014. Which way do you see it going right now?
It may be reversed, but Congress itself is hoping to get about 8 seats and 3 to BJP.
On that note, 23rd of May, these 65 Lok Sabha seats, of which the BJP gained 62 last time. Our experts are saying about 10 each in Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh to the Congress. You have Uttar Pradesh as well, that the party is trying to shore up against the BSP Samajwadi alliance. This is the base of what brought Mr. Modi to power. So a second term is dependent very heavily on retaining some of that strength. Thank you for watching.